Greetings everyone, this is Jeff Murrin. I'm here to discuss with you a little bit further the Iliad by Homer, specifically the Robert Fagel's translation of the book. And in this particular video, I want us to take a look specifically at book 21, which is titled Achilles Fights the River. All right. Now, I want to make it clear that it's not that he's fighting a river as like Don Quixote fought the windmills, okay? It's not that he's just lost his mind. The river itself has its own distinction as a god. It speaks to Achilles in this particular book. And we have Hera bring in the god Festus, the god of fire, who forged the armor for Achilles. He's going to come in and sort of, I guess, do battle, so to speak, with the river itself. Okay, so we've got the fire and water, and of course, you know, fire is the one that's working on Achilles' side. We know just how much the symbol of fire has been associated with Achilles as he's gone on his rampage, as he's been enraged. It's just the idea of fire and Achilles, it seems, cannot be separated. All right, and so let's go ahead and let's take a look at some lines in this chapter, and then, or this book as they are called. And what I will do is I will, as I always do, just give you some commentary as we go. So the very first thing what we see is Achilles by himself is able to split apart the Trojan army. All right, I'm starting on the third line in. It says Achilles split the Trojan rout, driving one half back toward the city, scattering up the plain, where Achaeans themselves stampeded off in terror just the day before when Hector raged unchecked. Skipping a couple lines. Hera spread a dense cloud ahead to block the way. So Hera is, you know, remember, when we last saw, Zeus said, hey, you gods can have at it. Choose whichever side you want. Well, of course, Hera has always favored the Greeks, and she's continuing to favor the Greeks, and so she's actively involved here in helping the Greeks out. So she spread a cloud ahead to block their way, but the other half were packed in the silver whirling river. Okay, that's very important here. Into its foaming depths they tumbled, splashing, flailing, the plunging river roaring. Banks echoing, roaring back, and the men screamed, swimming wildly left and right, spinning around in the whirlpools. All right, and so we see Achilles himself jumps into the whirlpool. He's like going after the men who were in there, and you know, we'll see him. He'll just slaughter men in the river, and the bodies are just you know, piling up in the water and swirling in the water. But this is on about line 20 on page 521, where it says, and the god-sprung hero left his spear on the bank, propped on its tamarisks. In he leapt like a frenzied god, his heart racing with slaughter, only his sword in hand, whirling in circles, slashing, hideous groans breaking, fighters stabbed by the blade, water flushed with blood. All right, so he's followed them into the river himself, and he is making quick work of all of these Trojan soldiers while they are in the river. All right, so what he sees someone climbing out of the river, and it's another one of Priam's son. And it goes on. They have a history together. He, you know, took him, and Achilles had taken him and sold him, I guess, as a slave elsewhere, and now he has returned, and Achilles is just sort of like, what are you doing here? What on all the world? I thought I had gotten rid of you already. All right, so it says since they have that history, I guess we could say, since they have that history, this son of Priam knows exactly what to expect of Achilles, and so he is begging Achilles for mercy, begging Achilles for his life. Down at the very bottom of page 522, it says, Achilles, I hug your knees, mercy, spare my life. I am your suppliant prince. You must respect me. Yours was the first bread I broke, Demeter's gift, that day you seized me in Priam's well-fenced orchard, hauled me away from father, loved ones, sold me off in holy Lemnos, and I fetched you 100 bulls, and once released I brought 3 times that price. And it's just 12 days that I've been home in Troy, all I've suffered. But now again some murderous fate has placed me in your hands, your prisoner twice over. Father Zeus must hate me, giving me back to you. He goes on and mentions Polydorus, if you remember Polydorus. That's the one, the youngest son of Priam that Achilles killed in the previous book. He goes on about line 108, says, don't kill me. I'm not from the same womb as Hector. I don't bear all the same lineage as Hector, okay? Hector who killed your friend, your strong, gentle friend. Now, I don't know if that's meant to be sort of a dig, your gentle friend. Why? Because he's dead, because he didn't make it, because he fell to us, or if he's sincere. But, you know, the translator here, Robert Fagles, has put that in italics for one reason or another. All right, skipping a couple lines there about line 01, he says, fool, this is Achilles, fool, don't talk to me of ransom. No more speeches. Before Patroclus met his day of destiny true, it warmed my heart a bit to spare some Trojans. All right. Droves I took alive and auctioned off as slaves, but now that Patroclus is gone, not a single Trojan flees his death. Not one the gods hand over to me before your gates. None of all the Trojans, son of Priam, least of all. Come, friend, you too must die. And then what happens there on the next page, 524, is Achilles kills him in cold blood. All right, and sends him off down the river so that, it mentions it here, so that he will not be able to have a proper burial, will not be able to cross over into the underworld because he won't have the rites and rituals there, you know, the proper rites and rituals there, so that the spirits in the underworld will welcome him in. All right, so it's almost like that's an added insult to the injury of killing him in cold blood. You can see Achilles goes on to speak about line 146. He says, die, Trojans, die, till I butcher all the way to sacred Troy. Run headlong on. I'll hack you from behind. Nothing can save you now. All right. He goes on, skipping a few lines. It says, writhing in death till all you Trojans pay for Patroclus's blood and the carnage of Achaeans killed by the racing ships when I was out of action. But if you'll see the next line, the very end of that next line, it says, the river's anger rose. That's where we first see the personification that this river is essentially a sentient being. This river has the ability to think, to feel, to react. All right. And it goes on page 525 to imply, or to actually not imply, just straight up illustrate that the Xanthus River, that's what it's called, actually the gods call it, there are two names that it goes by, but here's the Xanthus River responds, it reacts to the Trojan deaths, okay? And the more the deaths keep piling on and keep going in there, the more the river surges and the river gets obviously angry at this, all right? And so what we see here, let's go on to page 527, where the river actually starts to speak. This is on line 240. It says, stop, Achilles, greater than any man on earth, greater in outrage too, for the gods themselves are always at your side. But if Zeus allows you to kill off all the Trojans, drive them out of my depths, at least I ask you, out on the plain, and do your butchery there, okay? Stop doing it here, all right? These bodies are piling up essentially in me. If you're going to do this murderous rampage that you're on, do it out there so it doesn't affect me, okay? It says, all my lovely rapids are crammed with corpses now, no channel in sight to sweep my currents out to sacred sea. I'm choked with corpses, and still you slaughter more. You blot out more. Leave me alone. Have done, captain of armies. I am filled with horror. All right, and it goes on to say, and so the breakneck runner only paused to answer, so be it, Scamander. See, that's the other name. That's what it says. The mortals use the term Scamander. The gods call it Xanthus. All right, So be it, Scamander, sprung of Zeus, as your command, but I won't stop killing these overweening Trojans, not till I've packed them in their walls and tested Hector's strength against strength. He kills me, or I kill him. All right, skipping a couple lines there. It says, disgrace, God of the silver bow and born of Zeus, you throw to the winds the will of Cronus' son time and again. Zeus gave you strict commands. Stand by the Trojan ranks and save their lives till the sun goes down. At last that darkness shrouds the plowlands ripe with grain. So when he heard that, Achilles, the famous spearman, leaping down from the bluff, plunged into the river's heart, and the river charged against him. So it's like he and the river are having so many words that he's just like, all right, I'm just going to take this river on myself, all right? And so he plunges into the river's heart, and the river charged against him, churning, surging, all his rapids rising in white fury, and drove the massive corpses choking tight his channel. The ruck Achilles killed. Scamander heaved them up, and bellowing like a bull, the river flung them out on the dry land, but saved the living, hiding them down the fresh, clear pools of his thundering, whirling current. But thrashing over Achilles' shoulder raised a killer wave. The tremendous thrust of it slammed against his shield, and he staggered, lost his footing, his arms flung out. For a tall, strong elm he clung, but out it came by the roots, toppling down. So this is so powerful that Achilles pulls for a tree on the bank, but it's just, the momentum is so much that he just rips that right out of the ground. It says, toppling down, ripping away the whole cliff, blocking the stream with tangled snarls of branches crashing into full length to dam the river bank to bank. Bursting up from a whirlpool, Achilles dashed for the plain, his feet flying in terror, but the great god would not let up, hurling against him. Scamander, looming into a murderous breaker, dark over him, dead set on stopping the brilliant Achilles' rampage here and thrusting disaster off the struggling Trojan force. But the hero sprang away, far as a hard-flung spear swooping fast as the black eagle, the fierce marauder, both the strongest and swiftest bird that flies the sky. On he streaked, and the bronze rang out against his chest, clashing grimly. Slipping out from under the wave he fled, with the river rolling behind him, roaring huge. All right, so he is in full battle with a river. All right. We see, though, that some reinforcements come to his aid on the next page, page 529. We see Poseidon and Pallas, that's Athena, they move in, and they speak to him. Poseidon comes and speaks directly to him, and it's not Poseidon this time dressed as someone else or disguised as someone else. He is speaking as Poseidon directly to Achilles. You can see that on on line, let's see, 325. It says, courage, Achilles, why such fear, such terror? Not with a pair like us to urge you on, God in arms, sent down with Zeus's blessing, and I, and Pallas Athena. It's not your fate to be swallowed by a river, all right? He'll subside, and soon. You'll see for yourself, but we do have sound advice, if only you will yield. Never rest your hands from the great leveler war, not till you pack and cram the Trojan armies tight in the infamous walls of Troy. Whoever flees your onset, but once you've ripped away Prince Hector's life, back to the ships you'll go. We give you glory, seize it in your hands. Okay, it's almost like, I understand you're mad, but you're not going to die in the river. So focus. You are here to do one thing, and that's to take on the Trojans, to kill the Trojans. Do it. All right. It says at the second line of page 530, though, it says, the river could not stop him. All right, so we're still moving forward with this. 2 lines below that, it says, but the Xanthus River would not slack his fury either. All right, so it's almost like he's met his match as far as anger goes. This river is as angry as Achilles is angry. All right, he raged at Achilles all the more. He marshaled up a mountainous ridge of water, roaring out to Simois. Oh, dear brother, rise, both of us rush together to halt this mortal onslaught. At any moment, he'll storm King Priam's mighty stronghold down. The Trojans can't stand up to the man in battle. Like, the Trojans, all of them, can't stand up to the man in battle. Beat him back quickly. Deluge all your channels from your gushing springs. Muster your torrents. Raise up a tremendous wave, rumbling, booming with timber, boulders crashing. We'll stop this wild man in his tracks, lording it in his power and raging like some god. All right, so it's the river here who is calling out for reinforcements as well to try to take Achilles out. But we know that, you know, we saw Poseidon just now speaking to Achilles, and we know Athena's there. But look, here comes Hera. It just right below here, in that last section of page 530. Hera calls upon Festus, the fire god, the one who made the armor for Achilles. The last three lines says, "To arms, my child, god of the crooked legs. You are the one we'd thought a worthy match for the whirling river Xanthus." The top of the next page. "Quick, rescue Achilles. Explode in a burst of fire. I'll drive the west and south winds, white with clouds, and sweep in from the open seas, a tearing gale to sear the Trojan bodies and gear, and spread your lethal flames. And you make for the Xanthus. You make for the Xanthus banks and burn the trees. Hurl the steam itself into conflagration. Not for a moment. Let him turn you back with his winning words or threats. Never abate your fury. Not till I let loose my shout. Then halt your withering fire." All right, so she is getting Hephaestus, and we saw earlier that Hephaestus owes a lot to Hera. Pretty much, Hera took him and gave him comfort when he needed it, and he said, "I will do anything. How can I repay her?" And repays her first by making the armor, the massive, beautiful shield for Achilles, but now he's doing it also in bringing his fire to take on the river. And so what we see is Hephaestus just lets it rip. He just lets this fire come, and it's burning everything. It's burning all kinds of tree, plant life, animal life, everything. All right. And we see down about line 405, it says, "And now the river's strength was burning out." Like the river could not stand up against Hephaestus's flames. And the river says, "Hephaestus, stop. Not a single god can stand against you. No, not I. Can't fight such a fire, such fury. Hold your attack. Stop. Brilliant Achilles can drive them out of Ilium," that's Troy, "drive them out of Troy now. What's this war to me? Why should I help Troy?" He screamed in flames. So the river screamed in flames. You getting that? And so the river actually goes and speaks to Hera, and just like, "Man, I can't take this." And Hera calls him off. You can see on page 532, "Hephaestus, stop." This is line 430. "Hephaestus, stop. Stop, my glorious blazing boy. It's not right to batter another deathless god, not for the sake of these mortals." All right, so we see on 442, this is strange, "Zeus heard the chaos, thronged on Olympus Heights, and laughed deep in his own great heart, delighted to see the gods engaged in all-out conflict." So before he was like, "Don't anybody get involved." Now that everybody's involved and everybody's in conflict, he's like, "Ha ha, yes, look at all the havoc that I've caused here." Okay, and we do see the gods going at each other. We see Ares versus Athena. Okay, at the bottom of page 432, we see Athena. She claims she's stronger than Ares. I'm of higher status than you. And we see Hera even going to Athena and having Athena charge after Aphrodite. Remember, the two of them had that thing going on from the very beginning with the golden apple of discord. At the bottom of page 533, it says, "Athena's heart leapt high. She charged at Aphrodite, overtook her, and beat her breast with clenched fists." All right, and even goes on. Let's see. It says, "Down you go. May all the gods who help the Trojans fall as hard when they battle Argives armed for war, all as courageous, all steadfast as Aphrodite when she sped to Ares' side and faced my fury. Then we'd have done with fighting long ago, razed the rugged walls of Troy and laid her to waste." Okay, we also see Poseidon challenge Apollo here. about line 4, let's say 497. Apollo, why hold back from each other? It's not fair when the other gods have launched themselves in war. What disgrace for us to return without a fight to the bronze floor, the house Zeus on Mount Olympus. It's almost sort of like, and he goes and even says, I'll give you the first shot. It's almost like, why don't we engage in a fight? It would be like worthless if we went back to, Mount Olympus only to say like, well, we didn't actually get in a fight with each other, so come on, let's do this, all right? But you can see on page 535, Apollo speaks back, all right? That first little break there, it says, God of the earthquake, you'd think me hardly sane if I fought with you for the sake of wretched mortals. Like leaves, no sooner flourishing, full of the sun's fire, feeding on the earth's gifts, than they waste and die away. Stop. Call off this skirmish of ours at once. Let those mortals fight themselves to death. Let them have at it. Why are we fighting each other? And with that he turned and left, filled with shame, to grapple his own father's brother hand to hand. Now Artemis, who is also an archer goddess, sees Apollo not take up the fight with Poseidon and thinks, what a wuss, all right? It says, so the deadly immortal archer runs for dear life. This is about line 537. So the deadly immortal archer runs for dear life, turning over victory to Poseidon, total victory, giving him all the glory here without a fight. Why do you sport that bow, you spineless fool? It's worthless as the wind. Don't let me hear you boast in Father's hall ever again, as you bragged among the gods till now, that you would fight Poseidon strength on strength. Not a word in reply to that from the archer god. All right, so you see this is going on. You see Leto, Artemis' mom come into the whole thing, but you also see another scene that we've watched before. We see the god Artemis go to Zeus and cry about the treatment that she got. All right, this is on page 536, about line, let's say 585. Zeus asks, who has abused you now? Who has abused you now, dear child? Tell me, who of the sons of heaven so unfeeling, cruel? Why, it's as if they had caught you in public doing something wrong. Skipping a few lines, your own wife, father, the white-armed Hera, beat me. This strife, this warfare, plaguing all immortals, Hera's all to blame. Okay, so it's just so weird that these gods do so much, they cause so much damage, they intervene so much, and I don't want to, maybe not intervene, but they just inject themselves into this and cause almost all this strife. But the first time that they feel somebody has slighted them, they whisk off and they cry about it. All right, and we see at the top of page 537 though, Apollo enters Troy. Okay, so Apollo, who has the Trojans' backs like crazy, he enters the city of Troy. You can see that on the second line there of page 537. And importantly, we see this really neat image. Let's say about line 606. It says, but there on the gold-built heights stood aged Priam. So Priam is at, on the walls of the city of Troy looking here. Okay, and he saw monstrous Achilles racing on before him. So he sees what's coming. Trojans whipped in headlong flight, all rescue gone. They're running for their lives. The king cried out and clambered down to ground from the high tower, issuing quick commands to veteran gateway guards beside the walls. Spread the great gates wide. All hands now, till our routed troops can straggle back to Troy. Achilles swarms over them. They're stampeding, a terrible mauling's coming. I can see it now. Once they're packed in the walls and catch their breath, close the thick-set gates and bolt them tight again. I dread this murderous man. He'll burst right through our walls. Basically, get everybody in here before Achilles catches up to him and close it off. If he gets in here, we're done for. All right, and there is potential. He might just break through those gates. He is that powerful and that much to be feared. All right, and so what we see here on page 538, all right, we see Prince Agenor, or Agenor, I'd say Agenor, okay? And it says, and then and there the Achaeans would have taken the lofty gates of Troy if Apollo had not driven Prince Agenor at them. Antenor's son, a courageous, rugged soldier. He inspired his heart with daring, standing near, in person, to beat away the dragging fates of death, leaning against an oak concealed in swirls of mist. All right, so Apollo is going to send this person out as to maybe stop the momentum a little bit of the, of Achilles here, trying to get at these Trojans. And Agenor thinks for a minute. He's like, okay, look, I'm terrified of this guy. I could just run away, but he'll find me anyway and kill me, and he'll kill me as a coward, or I can stand up to him, all right? And so what we see is his taunt that he gives about line 669. It says, surely you must have hoped with all your heart, the great glorious Achilles, that you would raise the proud Trojan city this very day, you fool. You still have plenty of pain to suffer for her sake. We have fighting men by the hundreds still inside her, forming a wall before our loving parents, wives, and sons to defend Troy. Where you rush on to meet your doom, headlong man as you are, breakneck man of war. And he hurled his sharp spear from a strong hand. So Agenor throws a spear at Achilles, a hard, true hit on Achilles' shin below the knee. But that armor that Festus made for him, it held fast, all right? And it did not, it says not punching through on line 681. It says a couple lines below that, though, that Phobos, Apollo, refused to let him seize glory. He whisked Agenor off, okay, saving him from Achilles, wrapped in swirls of mist, and spread him out of the fighting safely on his own way. And then with trickery kept Achilles off the Trojans. And we see one of the last things I want to point out, about 3 lines up from the bottom of that page there, 539, it says Trojans fled en masse. All right, so the deal is, I did not go into a lot of the detail because there are long lists of names of Achilles' kills. He just destroys Trojan after Trojan after Trojan after Trojan. You can go in there and you can see for yourself just how many he does, and how gruesomely he does it. But the Trojans, the important part is the Trojans are retreating back into the city of Troy, fearing the entire Trojan army, fearing one man, Achilles, because of the damage that I just mentioned that he was able to inflict. All right, so that's where I'm going to leave book 21. I want you to read book 22, do your annotations, have some thoughts, formulate some thoughts of your own. I will do the same, and I will meet you back here. So until then, and as always, I want to wish you happy reading.